In the sprawling, anonymous heart of the city, a single moment of carelessness can unravel a life built on secrets. For Brooke Sullivan, a waitress drowning in medical bills, that moment came in the form of a sleek, impossibly heavy phone left behind on a table. Returning it should have been simple, a quick act of honesty. But this was no ordinary phone, and its owner was no ordinary man. Her decision to do the right thing would plunge her into a world of hidden dangers and desperate lies, forcing her to confront a secret so profound it had already been buried once with a death certificate. What she uncovered would not only change her life, but the lives of people she never knew existed. Stay with us as we unfold the incredible story of the waitress, the billionaire, and the phone call that changed everything. The Gilded Sparrow wasn't just a restaurant, it was a theater. Every night a play unfolded across its marble floors and under its crystal chandeliers. The actors were the city's elite bankers, tech moguls, political figures, and the audience was everyone else. Brooke Sullivan was part of the stage crew, a waitress who had perfected the art of being invisible. She could glide between tables, refilling water glasses and clearing plates with a practiced smile, her mind a million miles away, calculating co-pays and pharmacy bills. Her life existed in stark contrast to the casual opulence surrounding her. Her world was a cramped two-bedroom apartment that always smelled faintly of antiseptic, a world dominated by her younger sister Lily's medical chart. Lily, with her bright eyes and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes, was battling a rare autoimmune disorder that baffled doctors and devoured every dollar Brooke earned. Each shift at the Gilded Sparrow was a frantic race against a ticking clock of invoices and prescription refills. Tonight, the star of the show was a man who commanded his space without saying a word. He was seated at table 7, a prime corner booth. Brooke's manager, a perpetually stressed man named Peterson, had briefed her, "That's Declan Reese of Reese Dynamics. Don't stare, don't speak unless spoken to, and for God's sake, don't spill anything. The man could buy this block and turn it into a parking lot for his helicopter." Declan Reese looked less like a businessman and more like a predator in a tailored suit. He had sharp, angular features, dark hair with a whisper of silver at the temples, and eyes the color of a stormy sea. He ate little, spoke less, and spent most of the evening on his phone. It wasn't a commercial model Brooke recognized. It was a solid block of dark, matte metal, devoid of any logo, sleek and severe. His conversation was clipped tense. "The relocation is proceeding. No deviations. The package must remain secure. I don't care what it takes, Finian. Just handle it." Brooke moved past his table, her senses on high alert, as Peterson's warning echoed in her head. As she cleared a neighboring table, she caught a snippet more. "The asset is compromised," Reese hissed into the device. "We need to accelerate the timetable." He listened for a moment, his jaw tight. "I know the risks." He ended the call abruptly, tossing the phone onto the plush leather of the booth. He ran a hand over his face, a gesture of profound weariness that briefly cracked his icy facade. For a split second, he wasn't Declan Reese, titan of industry. He was just a man haunted and cornered. The moment passed. He rose, dropped several crisp $100 bills on the table, far more than enough to cover his bill, and strode out of the restaurant without a backward glance. Brooke waited a respectable minute before moving to clear the table. The cash was a godsend, a small gasp of air in her drowning financial state. It would cover Lily's next round of medication. As she gathered the plates, her hand brushed against something cool and heavy on the leather seat. It was his phone. The custom-built device felt alien in her hand, dense and cold. For a fleeting, shameful moment, a thought sparked in her mind. A phone like this, a piece of bespoke technology belonging to a man like Declan Reese. What would it be worth to a pawn shop? To one of his competitors? It could be thousands. It could be the answer to a month's worth of bills. Maybe even a down payment for the specialist Lily desperately needed to see. The temptation was a physical thing, a sour taste in the back of her throat. She thought of Lily's pale face, of the hope that flickered in her eyes every time Brooke promised that everything would be okay. This phone could make that promise a reality. But then another image surfaced: her father, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and an unshakable moral compass, telling her, "Brooke, all you really have in this world is your name and your word. Don't ever sell either one cheap." Her integrity, a luxury she felt she could scarcely afford, warred with her desperation. She looked at the phone, then at the door through which Declan Reese had disappeared. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Taking a deep, steadying breath, she slipped the device into her apron pocket. Her decision was made. She would return it. It was the right thing to do. She had no idea that this simple act of honesty was about to become the most dangerous decision of her life. The main entrance of Reese Dynamics was designed to intimidate. A cavernous lobby of steel and glass soared upwards, making a person feel insignificant. The air hummed with a quiet, efficient energy. Brooke, still in her waitress uniform, felt deeply out of place. She clutched the heavy phone in her hand, its smooth metal a stark contrast to her clammy palm. "I'm here to see Mr. Reese," she told the receptionist, a woman with a headset and a polite but impenetrable smile. "I believe he left this at the Gilded Sparrow last night." The receptionist didn't even look at the phone. "Mr. Reese does not take unscheduled appointments. You can leave the item with me." "I'd rather return it to him personally," Brooke insisted, a stubbornness she didn't know she possessed surfacing. "It seems important." The woman's smile tightened. "I assure you I can get it to his security team." Their polite standoff was interrupted by the arrival of a broad-shouldered man with reddish hair and a weary but watchful expression. He wore a simple dark suit, but moved with the coiled readiness of a bodyguard. Brooke recognized his name from the phone call, Finian. "I'll take it from here, Jessica," he said, his voice a low rumble. He turned his attention to Brooke, his eyes doing a quick, professional sweep. "You have something for Mr. Reese." "His phone," Brooke said, holding it out. Finian didn't take it. Instead, he studied her face. "And you are Brooke Sullivan. I was his waitress. And you just decided to bring it all the way down here. Why not just give it to your manager?" The question was casual, but the implication was not. He was testing her. "My manager would have put it in a lost and found box. It felt more important than that," she said, honestly. Suddenly, the phone in her hand vibrated a powerful, deep hum. The dark screen flickered to life. But it wasn't a normal lock screen with a password prompt. It was a single high-resolution photograph of a young girl no older than 7, with Declan Reese's stormy eyes and a cascade of dark curls. She was laughing, her head thrown back in pure joy. Below the image, a single line of text pulsed urgently in a simple white font. "Don't let him find us. Annalise is asking for you." Brooke's breath hitched. Annalise. The name resonated with a heart-breaking innocence. Who was him? And why was this child, who looked so much like the formidable Declan Reese, sending such a desperate message? Finian saw the flicker of recognition and shock in Brooke's eyes. His demeanor changed instantly, shifting from cautious to critical. "Give me the phone. Now." He snatched the device from her hand, just as the screen went dark again. He handled it with a familiarity that confirmed his role as Declan's confidant. "Wait here," he commanded, before disappearing through a set of imposing steel doors. Brooke was left standing in the center of the lobby, her mind reeling. The image of the girl Annalise was seared into her memory. The cold, powerful billionaire from the restaurant suddenly had a new, hidden dimension. He was a father, and from the looks of it, a father in some kind of terrible trouble. The wait stretched into an eternity. People in expensive suits walked past, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and dismissal. Brooke felt her resolve wavering. Maybe she should have just left it with the receptionist. Finally, Finian returned. "Mr. Reese will see you." He led her through a maze of quiet, plush-carpeted hallways to a corner office with a panoramic view of the city. Declan Reese was standing by the window, his back to them. He didn't turn around when they entered. "You have my gratitude, Miss Sullivan." He said, his voice flat and detached, a reflection in the glass. "Finian will compensate you for your time and honesty." Finian stepped forward and offered her an envelope. It felt thin. Too thin. "That's not necessary, Mr. Reese," Brooke found herself saying. "I just wanted to make sure you got it back." At this, Reese finally turned. His eyes were cold, searching. He looked from her face to the phone, now sitting on his polished mahogany desk. "You saw the screen, didn't you?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Brooke's heart hammered. It lit up. "I didn't mean to." A flicker of something anger-fair crossed his features before being suppressed. "What you saw is a confidential security feature, a meaningless series of images and words designed to confuse a potential thief. It means nothing." The lie was so blatant, so poorly delivered, it was almost insulting. He was dismissing her, erasing what she saw. "Right. A security feature," Brooke said, her voice laced with an unintentional hint of sarcasm. Declan Reese took a step closer. The sheer force of his presence was overwhelming. "You are a waitress, Miss Sullivan. A smart one, I imagine. Smart enough to understand that some things are best forgotten. For your trouble." He gestured again to the envelope Finian held. This time, Brooke took it. She needed the money, and arguing was pointless. She opened it later in the elevator. Inside were two $50 bills. $100. A perfunctory, almost contemptuous gesture from a man who used $100 bills as bookmarks. It wasn't the paltry amount that stung. It was the dismissal. He wasn't rewarding her honesty. He was paying her to forget to disappear. As she walked out of the towering glass building and back into the real world of grit and struggle, Brooke Sullivan knew two things for certain. First, Declan Reese was lying, and second, the image of the laughing girl named Annalise was not something she could ever forget. The $100 felt like tainted money. Brooke used it to pay for a week's worth of Lily's specialized nutritional supplements, but the feeling of unease lingered. The encounter with Declan Reese had left a deep impression, a dissonance she couldn't shake. The cold, dismissive billionaire versus the desperate message from the child on his phone, the two images refused to align. "You look 1,000,000 miles away," said Rosa, her co-worker, at the Gilded Sparrow, as they polished silverware during a lull in service. Thinking about Mr. Moneybags from table 7 inches, Brooke forced a smile. Just tired. But she wasn't just tired. She was obsessed. That night, after she'd settled Lily in for bed, reading her a chapter from an old book of fairy tales, Brooke sat at her rickety kitchen table, her second-hand laptop humming. The name Annalise Reese was a persistent echo in her mind. She started with the obvious, a search for Declan Reese children. The results were uniform and sterile. Corporate biographies, articles from financial journals praising his ruthless business acumen, interviews where he spoke of legacy in terms of patents and market shares, never family. According to the public record, Declan Reese was a widower, and he was childless. Brooke frowned. That couldn't be right. The girl on the phone was real. The emotion in that desperate plea was real. She dug deeper, adding keywords: wife, family, accident. And then she found it. It was an article from a Society column dated 8 years prior. The headline read, "Tragedy strikes tech titan, Madeline Race, and daughter lost in boating accident." Brooke's blood ran cold. The article was brief, detailing a sailing trip off the coast that had ended in disaster. The yacht, the Serenity, was caught in a sudden violent squall. Debris was found, but the bodies of Declan's wife, Madeline, and their 6-year-old daughter were never recovered. They were declared legally dead after a lengthy search. The article included a small, grainy photograph of Madeline Reese. She was beautiful with a warm smile and the same dark, curly hair as the girl on the phone. The caption mentioned her name, Madeline Annalise Reese. Annalise wasn't the daughter's first name. It was her middle name. The daughter's name was listed as Colette. Brooke stared at the screen, her heart pounding. The official story was that Declan Reese's wife and daughter were dead. But the phone, a device he guarded so jealously, had shown her a picture of a girl who had to be Colette, now a young teenager, using her mother's middle name, Annalise, and sending a message that screamed she was alive and in hiding. Don't let him find us. Who was him? Brooke's search continued, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She looked up Reese Dynamics' corporate history. Before it was a global powerhouse, it was a partnership Reese-Shaw Technologies. Her next search was Gideon Shaw. The results painted a picture of a bitter, acrimonious split. Gideon Shaw, the brilliant but volatile co-founder, had been forced out of the company by Declan Reese in what was described as a hostile takeover of the boardroom. Shaw had sued, alleging that Reese had stolen proprietary technology, the very foundation of Reese Dynamics' success. The legal battle was long, ugly, and public. Shaw lost. He accused Reese of ruining his life, of stealing his legacy. The articles quoted him making veiled threats, his language full of violent, resentful rhetoric. The split had happened less than a year before the boating accident. The pieces started to click into place, forming a terrifying mosaic. A ruthless business partner, a bitter falling out, a supposed accident where the bodies were never found, a secret, untraceable phone, a hidden child sending a coded message. Declan Reese hadn't lost his family. He had hidden them. He had faked their deaths to protect them from the one man who had a reason to hurt him in the most profound way imaginable, Gideon Shaw. The cold, dismissive facade wasn't arrogance. It was armor. It was the carefully constructed fortress of a man living in constant fear, guarding a secret that could get his family killed. And Brooke, by seeing that screen, had just picked the lock. Back in his penthouse office, Declan Reese watched the city lights blur into a tapestry of gold. Finian stood beside him holding a tablet. "The background check on the waitress Brooke Sullivan is complete," Finian said, his voice grim. "She's clean. No connections, no criminal record. But she's in a tough spot. Younger sister has a variant of lupus. Medical debt is crushing her. She's working 2 jobs and still barely staying afloat." Declan remained silent, his expression unreadable. "The $100 payment was a mistake, Declan," Finian continued, a rare note of criticism in his voice. "It was insulting. It makes us look like we have something to hide. It makes her suspicious. A woman that desperate with a secret this big." "She saw Colette's face," Declan said, his voice barely a whisper. The sound scraped raw with a pain he never showed the world. "She saw the message." "What do we do?" Finian asked. Declan turned from the window. his eyes no longer stormy, but blazing with a fierce, protective fire. We watch her. We watch every move she makes. We find out what she does next. Because if Gideon Shaw even suspects that she knows something, he won't hesitate to use her to get to them. He looked at the dark phone on his desk, his only lifeline to a world he had sacrificed everything to protect. And I've already buried my family once. I won't do it again. The days following Brooke's discovery bled into a paranoid haze. Every car that idled too long on her street, every unfamiliar face in the grocery store seemed like a potential threat. She was carrying a secret that wasn't hers, a heavy, volatile truth that could shatter lives. She told no one, not even Rosa. The knowledge isolated her, building a wall of fear around her. Her paranoia crystallized into reality a week later. She was walking home from her late shift, the streetlights casting long, dancing shadows. A dark sedan with tinted windows slowed as it passed her, its engine an unnervingly quiet hum. It paced her for half a block before speeding off into the night. Coincidence, she told herself, her heart thumping a frantic rhythm against her ribs. But she knew it wasn't. The next day, she was called into Peterson's office at the Gilded Sparrow. He looked uncomfortable, avoiding her gaze. "Brooke, I have to let you go," he said, shuffling papers on his desk. Brooke was stunned. "What?" "Why, I'm never late. I take extra shifts." "We've had a complaint," he mumbled. "A very important customer. Said you were inattentive, rude. Accused you of eavesdropping." He finally looked at her, his expression a mixture of pity and frustration. "Look, the guy is a major investor in the restaurant group. My hands are tied. I'm sorry." She knew instantly. It wasn't a real complaint. It was a message. Gideon Shaw, or someone working for him, had seen her return the phone to Declan Reese. They must have been watching Reese, and now they were watching her. They were testing her, squeezing her, trying to see what she knew. Losing her job was devastating. It was her primary source of income, the one thing keeping her and Lily afloat. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at her throat. The harassment became less subtle. A wrong number call to her apartment in the middle of the night. When she answered, there was only silence on the other end, the sound of slow, deliberate breathing. Then a quiet click. Another time she came home to find her mail scattered on the floor of her apartment lobby, her bills and letters rifled through. Nothing was taken, but the violation was clear. They were digging into her life, learning her vulnerabilities, and her greatest vulnerability was Lily. The fear for her sister eclipsed everything else. What if they came to the apartment? What if they tried to use Lily to get to her, desperate and terrified? Brooke knew she couldn't go to the police. What would she tell them? That a billionaire faked his family's death, and now his vengeful ex-partner was stalking her. They would think she was delusional. There was only one person who would understand, one person who had the resources to help. The person who had dragged her into this mess. She had to contact Declan Reese. But how walking back into his corporate fortress was out of the question. She had no number, no email. She remembered the name from his phone call, the only other name she had, Finian. She took a wild gamble searching online for security firms that catered to high-net-worth individuals in the city. She cross-referenced them with Reese Dynamics' known corporate partners. After hours of frantic searching, she found a match: O'Connell Protective Services, a boutique security firm with a discreet website. The principal was listed as Finian O'Connell. With trembling hands, she dialed the number listed. A crisp, professional voice answered. "O'Connell Protective. How can I help you?" "I need to speak with Mr. O'Connell," Brooke said, her voice strained. It's about the Gilded Sparrow." She was put on hold. Each second felt like an hour. She expected to be dismissed, hung up on. But then, the low rumble of his voice came on the line. "This is Finian O'Connell." "My name is Brooke Sullivan," she said, words tumbling out in a rush. "The waitress, from the restaurant. I need to talk to Mr. Reese. It's urgent. I'm being followed. I lost my job. I think someone knows that I know." There was a long pause on the other end. Brooke could hear the faint sound of traffic, the white noise of a world that was utterly oblivious to her terror. "Where are you right now?" Finian's voice was suddenly sharp, devoid of any formality. "I'm at a payphone a few blocks from my apartment." "Don't go home. Go to the coffee shop on the corner of Westlake and 4th. It's called the Daily Grind. Sit at a table in the back. Do not talk to anyone. Do not use your cell phone. I will be there in 15 minutes. The line went dead. Brooke hung up the phone, her body shaking with a mixture of fear and a sliver of relief. She had stepped off a cliff, and for the first time someone had offered a hand to catch her. As she hurried towards the coffee shop, pulling her collar up against the chill wind, she couldn't escape the feeling that she wasn't just a pawn in someone else's game anymore. She was an active player, and the stakes were higher than she could ever have imagined. The Daily Grind was a generic, soulless coffee shop, the kind of place people passed through without a second thought. It was the perfect location for a clandestine meeting. Brooke chose a small table in the back corner, her back to the wall, her eyes scanning every person who entered. The coffee she ordered grew cold, untouched. Exactly 15 minutes later, Finian O'Connell walked in. He moved with an economy of motion that belied his size, his eyes sweeping the room before settling on her. He approached her table and sat down, without a word, placing a small, sealed paper bag on the table. "This is a burner phone," he said in a low voice. "It's programmed with one number. Mine. Use it only for emergencies. Your personal phone is no longer secure." "It's him, isn't it?" Brooke whispered, her voice trembling. "Gideon Shaw." Finian's expression was grim. "We believe his people have been tracking Mr. Reese for months, looking for any anomaly, any deviation from his routine. Your visit to the office was an anomaly. They flagged you. They're trying to figure out what you know." "They got me fired," she said, the words catching in her throat. "They're watching my apartment." "We know," Finian said. "We've been watching them watch you. We have a team outside your building now. Your sister is safe." A wave of relief, so powerful it made her dizzy, washed over Brooke. "Why didn't you do something sooner?" Mr. Reese wanted to be sure. He didn't want to believe Shaw would be this reckless. Finian leaned forward slightly. "He wants to meet you. A car is waiting out back. It will take you to him." Brooke hesitated for only a second. Her old life was already gone, burned away by a secret she never asked for. There was no going back now. She nodded. The car was a nondescript black sedan that navigated the city's labyrinthine streets with practiced ease, eventually descending into the private underground garage of a sleek, anonymous residential tower. Finian led her to a private elevator that opened directly into a stunning penthouse apartment. It was minimalist and modern, furnished with exquisite taste, but it felt cold, unlived in. It was a safe house, not a home. Declan Reese was waiting for them, standing before a wall of glass that overlooked the rain-slicked city. He was dressed in casual clothes, a dark sweater, and trousers that did nothing to soften his intense presence. "Miss Sullivan." He began, his voice devoid of the cold formality she remembered. It was laced with a deep, resonant weariness. "I owe you an apology, and an explanation. My actions have put you in grave danger, and for that I am profoundly sorry." Brooke stood her ground, wrapping her arms around herself. Your daughter is alive." It was a statement, not a question. Declan's shoulders slumped slightly, the first crack she'd seen in his iron control. "Yes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Her name is Colette. My wife, Madeline, is alive as well." He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes was one of profound grief and fierce love. 8 years ago, my former partner, Gideon Shaw, became unhinged. Our business dispute wasn't just about money or patents, it became a personal vendetta. He saw the company as his life's work, and he believed I had stolen it. He began making threats. Not to me, but to my family. Subtle at first, then more overt. He became obsessed with Madeline. He walked over to a small hidden bar and poured 3 fingers of whiskey into a glass, his hand shaking slightly. "He tried to arrange a kidnapping." Declan continued, his voice low and ragged. "My security team intercepted the communication. We went to the police, but they said there wasn't enough evidence to act on, just threats, no concrete action. I realized then that the law couldn't protect them. Shaw was wealthy, clever, and pathologically determined. He would never stop." He took a long swallow of the whiskey. "So I made a decision. To the world, my family had to die. We staged the boating accident. It was meticulously planned. An old friend in South America with unique skills helped arrange everything: new identities, new lives. Madeline Annalise Reese became Helena Vargas. My daughter Colette became Anna. I've spent the last 8 years living a half-life, communicating with them, through encrypted channels, seeing my own daughter grow up in photographs and short video clips, funneling money to them through a dozen shell corporations." He gestured to the phone Finian now held. "That device, the Aegis, is my only direct link. It operates on a closed satellite network. The lock screen you saw is a panic signal, a duress code. If they are ever truly compromised, they send that signal. It means they're on the run and need immediate extraction. It means Shaw has found them." Brooke finally understood the depth of his paranoia, the reason for his coldness. It was a shield not just for him, but for them. "When you showed up," Declan said, his gaze locking with hers, "and Shaw's people immediately started pressuring you, I knew my worst fear had come true. Shaw doesn't know for sure that they're alive, but he suspects. He's always suspected. He thinks you're my new link. He thinks I passed you a message, a hard drive, something he can use to find them." He put the glass down, the sound sharp in the quiet room. "He is closing in, Miss Sullivan. He's getting desperate. I'm running out of time and options. I need to create a diversion, a significant one, to throw him off the scent long enough for me to relocate my family permanently somewhere. Even I can barely find them." He looked at her, his expression a mixture of desperation and resolve. "I need your help, Brooke." The use of her first name was jarring intimate. It pulled her deeper into the story, making her a character instead of a bystander. What do you want me to do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I want you to help me set a trap," Declan Reese said, his stormy eyes intense. "I want you to be the bait." The air in the penthouse crackled with a new, terrifying energy. Declan Reese laid out the plan on a large digital screen that rose from a coffee table, displaying satellite maps and communication schematics. It was a plan born of desperation, intricate and fraught with risk. "Gideon Shaw believes you have something of value," Declan explained, his voice calm and focused, the voice of a CEO orchestrating a high-stakes merger. "He thinks you're either a willing accomplice or a scared pawn he can manipulate. We're going to lean into the second option. We will make him believe you're ready to sell what you know." Finian took over, pointing to a location on the map. "The plan is to stage a dead drop. You will go to a public place. We've selected the Grand Central Market during its busiest hour. You will carry a package. You will pretend to be selling a data drive containing the location of my family to a third-party information broker." "But there is no data drive," Brooke stated, her mind racing to keep up. "Exactly," Declan said. "The drive you'll carry will be loaded with a sophisticated tracking virus, a digital ghost. The moment it's plugged into any network, it will infect their system, mapping their infrastructure and feeding us everything, their locations, communications, identities. But more importantly, it will lead them on a wild goose chase, feeding them false location data that points to a shell team we have waiting in Argentina." "Shaw won't come himself," Finian added. "He'll send his top operative, a man named Corbin. He's a former intelligence agent, ruthless and efficient. Our goal is twofold: get the corrupted drive into their hands, and secondly, to get a positive ID on Corbin and plant a physical tracker on him if possible." Brooke felt a chill run down her spine. "And what happens to me? I'll be in the middle of a crowded market meeting with a dangerous man." "You will never be alone," Declan assured her, his eyes locking onto hers with fierce intensity. "Finian's team will be everywhere, dressed as vendors, shoppers, transit cops. You'll have a communication device, a tiny earpiece. Finian will be in your ear the entire time. At the first sign of trouble, the absolute first sign, the extraction team moves in. Your safety is the primary objective. If the plan goes south, we abort immediately. I give you my word." His word. The word of a man who had lied to the entire world for 8 years. But looking at him now, seeing the desperate father beneath the billionaire's armor, she believed him. He wasn't risking his chance to save his family by letting her get hurt. The next 24 hours were a blur of preparation. Brooke was moved to a different, more secure safe house. Finian's team drilled her relentlessly. They taught her how to spot a tail, how to move through a crowd, what to say, and more importantly, what not to say. They gave her a backstory, a desperate woman who stumbled upon something valuable and was now in over her head, looking for a quick, life-changing payout. It wasn't hard to act the part. The package was a simple-looking padded envelope, weighted to feel like it contained a hard drive. The earpiece was no bigger than a grain of rice, almost invisible. The morning of the operation, Declan met with her one last time. He handed her a manila folder. "This is for you," he said, "regardless of what happens today." She opened it. Inside were documents establishing a trust fund in her name, large enough to cover all of Lily's medical care, the specialist treatments, the experimental drugs, everything for the rest of her life. There was also a deed to a small, modest house in a quiet suburban town, known for its excellent medical facilities. Brooke stared at him, speechless. "This isn't payment, Brooke," he said softly. "This is restitution. I brought this chaos into your life. The least I can do is give you and your sister the peace you deserve. This is already done. It's in your name. It's yours, whether you walk out that door today or not." Tears welled in her eyes. It was freedom. It was the end of the constant, grinding worry that had been her entire existence. He was giving her back her life. "Why?" she whispered. "Because you showed me something I thought I'd lost," Declan said, his gaze distant. "You're a good person who was handed a terrible choice, and you chose to do the right thing, even when it was the hardest. You reminded me of my wife. Now let's go get my family back." Steeling herself, Brooke nodded. She placed the folder on the table, put the earpiece in her ear, and took the decoy package. As she walked towards the door, she felt the familiar knot of fear in her stomach, but it was now threaded with something new, a steely, unwavering resolve. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a key player in a desperate gambit, and she wouldn't fail. The Grand Central Market was a living, breathing creature, a kaleidoscope of sensory overload. The air, thick and humid, was a chaotic perfume of sizzling garlic from the food stalls, the sweet perfume of ripe mangoes, the earthy scent of fresh flowers, and the sharp, briny tang of fish on ice. 100 conversations in a dozen languages merged into a single indecipherable roar, punctuated by the rhythmic clang of a butcher's cleaver and the cheerful shouting of vendors. For anyone else, it was a vibrant slice of city life. For Brooke, it was the stage for the most terrifying performance of her life. Her heart hammered a frantic, suffocating rhythm against her ribs, a drumbeat trying to compete with the market's symphony. She clutched the decoy envelope to her chest as if it were a shield. Every nerve ending fizzled with a high-voltage current of fear. "Okay, Brooke, sound check. Just say your name for me." Finian's voice, a calm island in her sea of panic, materialized in her ear. "Brooke Sullivan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Loud and clear. We have you on 3 different cameras. You're doing great. Remember the drills. You are just a woman on an errand. Head towards the central fountain. Move with the crowd, not against it." She took a breath, trying to command her trembling legs to move. She thought of Lily, of the effortless bravery her sister showed every single day. If Lily could face down a relentless illness with a smile, Brooke could walk across this market. The thought was a steel rod inserted into her spine. She began to walk, melting into the river of people, her gaze fixed on the shimmering, dancing water of the fountain ahead. "Target is on sight." Finian's voice was low and steady. "Grey jacket, blue baseball cap, sitting on the 3rd bench to your left, pretending to read a newspaper. That's Corbin. Do not make eye contact. Do not even glance in his direction. Proceed to the designated bench on the far side of the fountain. It's the one directly under the old clock." Brooke's blood ran cold. He was real, a monster hiding in plain sight. She kept her eyes locked on the clock tower, its hands seeming to move with agonizing slowness. She reached the bench, its cold stone seeping through her jeans, and sat. As instructed, she placed the padded envelope beside her, a silent, loaded invitation. The wait was a unique form of torture. Seconds dripped by like water from a leaky faucet. She watched a little boy drop his ice cream and burst into tears, his mother quickly comforting him with a hug. She saw a young couple, hands intertwined, laughing as they shared a pastry. These small, mundane moments of life felt like they were from another universe, a world she no longer belonged to. She was a ghost, haunting the edges of their reality. "He's on the move," Finian said, his voice instantly sharpening her focus. "Stay calm. Let him lead. Remember what you're fighting for." A moment later, a man sat on the other end of her bench. Corbin. He radiated a chilling stillness, an utter lack of presence that was more menacing than any overt threat. He didn't look at her, his attention seemingly fixed on the newspaper in his hands. "You have it." His voice was flat, devoid of emotion or inflection, like stones scraping together. "Yes," Brooke heard herself say, the sound thin and reedy. She cleared her throat, forcing strength into her next words. "Do you have the money?" "A wire transfer will be initiated to an offshore account once we verify the contents," he said, still not looking at her. He slid the folded newspaper across the bench. "An access code for that account is in this. Leave the package. Walk away. Don't look back. If you do, the deal is off, and we will find you." This was the moment. The plan hinged on her next words. Her fear screamed at her to obey, to take the paper and run. But Finian's training and the image of a little girl's laughing face on a phone screen took over. She channeled every ounce of desperation she had felt for the past 2 years, the desperation of a sister watching the person she loved most in the world fade away. "No," she said. The word was quiet, but unyielding. Corbin finally turned his head, his eyes small and dark, like a predator's, fixing on her for the first time. The deal was an exchange. "Here. Now. You take the drive, I get the coat. That's the only way." A tense, heavy silence stretched between them. She could feel him evaluating her, weighing her resolve against the value of the package. The entire operation balanced on the knife's edge of this single moment. "He's hesitating." Finian's voice was a reassuring whisper. "He doesn't like loose ends, but he wants what you have more. Hold your nerve, Brooke. You've got him." Corbin gave a short, almost imperceptible nod. "Fine." He reached out his fingers, closing around the envelope. As he pulled it away, he slid the newspaper into its place. For a fraction of a second, his calloused fingertips brushed against hers. The contact was brief, but it felt like a jolt of electricity. "It's done." Finian's voice was sharp with triumph. "The micro-tracker was transferred on contact. We have him. Brooke, your part is over. Get up slowly, take the newspaper and walk towards the north exit. Do not run. Just walk. Get out of there." A tidal wave of relief, so powerful it almost buckled, her knees washed over her. She stood, her legs shaking, picked up the newspaper and began to walk. She forced herself into a steady, even pace, weaving through the crowd towards the glowing exit sign. Each step was a victory. Almost there. Just a few more feet. She was 10 feet from the doors when a hand, strong and unyielding, clamped down on her shoulder. Ice-cold terror seized her. She spun around, a strangled cry catching in her throat. It wasn't Corbin. It was a different man, thin and wiry, his eyes wide and jittery. "Corbin sent me." The man hissed, his grip tightening like a vice. "He said you look familiar. He wants another word before you leave." "Abort, abort!" Finian's voice screamed in her ear, no longer calm, but a raw command. "Brooke, move to your left now. Move!" Instinct took over. As the man tried to pull her back, chaos erupted around them. To her left, a fruit vendor's cart, piled high with oranges, suddenly tipped over, sending a river of citrus rolling across the floor. To her right, a man in a business suit stumbled, sending a tray of coffees flying. It was Finian's team, creating a perfect targeted pandemonium. The wiry man was momentarily distracted, his grip loosening for a split second. It was all the opening Brooke needed. She wrenched her arm free and darted left, plunging into the thickest part of the panicked crowd. People shouted as she pushed past a blur of faces and colors. She could hear the man shouting behind her, but his voice was swallowed by the market's roar. "North exit is compromised." Finian's voice was strained, breathless. "Rerouting. Head for the service corridor behind the fish market. I'll meet you there. Go." Adrenaline was afire in her veins. She ran her lungs, burning her vision, narrowed to a single point. She dodged frantic shoppers and abandoned carts, the sounds of the chase, a terrifying echo behind her. She saw the sign for the fish market, the floor slick with melted ice. She ducked behind a large display of crabs and found the service door, a grimy metal slab marked "Staff Only." She threw her shoulder against it and stumbled into a dark, dripping corridor. The door slammed shut behind her, cutting off the market's noise. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of water and her own ragged gasps. The air was cold and smelled of bleach and brine. The door burst open again. She cried out, spinning around, but it was Finian. His face was grim, his eyes blazing. "Come on, this way." He grabbed her arm and half-dragged her down the slick corridor to a steel door that led into a back alley. A black van, its engine rumbling, was waiting. They scrambled inside, and the doors slammed shut, plunging them into near darkness as the van screeched away from the curb. As her eyes adjusted, she saw a figure in the shadows. It was Declan Reese. The faint glow of the dashboard lights illuminated a face carved from tension. For a long moment, he just stared at her, his chest rising and falling with a deep, shuddering breath. The relief on his face was so profound, so absolute, it was almost painful to witness. "He took it," Declan finally said, his voice husky with emotion. "The virus is in their system. The tracker is active. You did it, Brooke." He paused, shaking his head slightly, as if in disbelief. "Thank you." The gambit had worked. Within hours, Shaw's entire digital infrastructure was compromised. The false data was planted, sending Corbin and his teams on a futile, expensive ghost hunt to an empty safe house in the Argentine Andes. The window was open. 2 days later, the air in the private hangar was cool and smelled of jet fuel and rain. Brooke stood with Declan and Finian beside a sleek Gulfstream jet, the silence vast and humming with anticipation. Declan looked like a different man. The weariness was still there, etched into the lines around his eyes, but it was overshadowed by a fragile, radiant hope. "They'll be landing in 20 minutes, he said, his gaze fixed on the grey, overcast sky. "A transport is waiting to take them to their new home. A place so remote, so secure. They'll finally be safe. They'll finally be free to just be." He turned to Brooke, his expression softening. "I can never truly repay you for the risk you took, but I can give you a future free from fear and worry. The house is yours. The trust is active. Lily's new team of doctors at the Pediatric Institute are expecting her next week for her first consultation." He handed her a new, sleek smartphone. "This has one number in it. Mine. My personal direct line. If you or Lily ever need anything at all, you call." Just then, the distant whine of jet engines grew into a roar. The Gulf Stream descended from the clouds, landing with practiced grace on the tarmac. It taxied towards them, its engines powering down with a final sighing whistle. The silence that followed was absolute. The jet's door opened, and a staircase lowered to the ground. A woman appeared at the top. Even from a distance, Brooke could see the resilient strength in her face as her eyes scanned the hangar, finally landing on Declan. Behind her, a teenage girl emerged, her dark, curly hair blowing in the breeze. She had her father's stormy eyes, filled with a cautious curiosity. Colette, Annalise. Declan didn't run, and didn't. He walked each step measured and deliberate, as if he were afraid a single hurried movement would shatter the mirage. Madeline met him halfway. They didn't speak. They simply fell into each other's arms, a silent, desperate embrace that conveyed 8 years of terror, solitude, and unending love. Then Colette ran the last few feet and launched herself into her father's arms, burying her face in his chest. He wrapped his arms around both of them, his wife and his daughter, and for the first time, Declan Reese looked completely whole. Brooke watched from a distance, tears streaming unchecked down her face. It was a moment so private, so profoundly sacred, she felt like an intruder. She turned to give them their privacy, but Declan's voice called her name. He beckoned her over his arm, still securely around his daughter. "Colette," he said, his voice thick with an emotion he no longer tried to hide. "This is Brooke Sullivan. She's a very brave woman who helped bring us home." The girl looked up at Brooke, her eyes holding a startling wisdom, a maturity forged in a life of hiding. "The one who found the phone?" she asked softly. Brooke could only nod, her throat tight. "Thank you," Colette said, her voice clear and strong, a perfect blend of her mother's warmth and her father's resolve. "For giving me my dad back." Months later, Brooke sat in the sun-drenched garden of her new home. The scent of roses hung in the air, and the sound of pure, unrestrained laughter drifted from the open kitchen door. Lily, her cheeks flushed with color, her energy boundless, was inside, finally living the childhood that had been stolen from her. Brooke's life was a quiet, gentle stream, now filled with the peace she once thought was an impossible dream. She was studying online, her first step towards a new career, a new purpose. Her phone buzzed on the table beside her. It was a text from an unknown number. With a sense of quiet curiosity, she opened it. It was a photograph. Declan, Madeline, and Colette were standing on a pristine, secluded beach, the ocean a brilliant turquoise behind them. The sun was setting, bathing them in a golden light. They were all smiling, not posing for a camera, but sharing a moment of genuine, unadulterated happiness. Below the image was a single line of text. "Hope you and Lily are well. The sparrows are flying free." Dee Brooke smiled a true, soul-deep smile that reached her eyes. The gilded sparrow. It felt like a lifetime ago. She had been a waitress, serving the gilded cages of the wealthy, but a single simple act of honesty had unlocked not just a billionaire's secret, but her own freedom as well. The debt was paid. The ghosts were at peace. And for the first time, everyone was finally truly home. And so, a simple act of returning a lost phone unraveled a web of secrets, 8 years in the making, proving that integrity can be the most valuable currency of all. Brooke Sullivan wasn't looking for a reward. She was just trying to do the right thing. In doing so, she not only saved a family she never knew existed, but also found the future she and her sister so desperately deserved. This story is a powerful reminder that behind every face, rich or poor, there's a hidden battle being fought, and sometimes the smallest act of kindness can be the one thing that tips the scales toward hope. What did you think of Brooke's incredible journey? Let us know in the comments below. If this story moved you, please smash that like button, share it with someone who loves a story of suspense and heart, and most importantly, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you won't miss our next real-life drama. Thank you for listening.